Welcome back to Meraki Unboxed. My name's Simon Thompson, your host for today. We're all about training today. We want to make sure that you get maximum value out of your Meraki investment, and we know that the very best way to do that is to get some good, solid training. There's a lot to know when you get under the covers of Meraki, so that's why we have some pretty extensive training options available for you, and we're going to walk you through those in today's episode. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that we run this podcast every couple of weeks, and we love having guests on here. Customers, partners, technology partners, whatever you're into with Meraki. If you'd like to be on the show or just have an idea to participate, please do reach out and ping me on Twitter. My handle there is @MerakiSimon. I'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to get you involved in the show. So let's get straight into the episode. We have plenty to talk about today, and I'm going to introduce Arun, who is joining us from Down Under, and he's going to introduce himself, and then we'll get into the podcast. Arun, how are you doing today?
Hey, Simon. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. It's Monday. The sun is shining in California. Whereabouts are you?
Yeah, I'm based in Sydney, Australia.
Sydney,
Yeah,
Australia. So it's the
yeah.
morning. It's the morning time for you. What time are we? What time of the day are we?
Yeah, so it's Tuesday morning. It's about 9:30 now. Yeah, 9:30 in the morning.
Okay, caffeine is flowing. You're ready to go?
I'm into those green teas and so on nowadays. So yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah, got the tea in and it's going. Yeah.
Nice work. All right. Well, Arun, tell us a little bit about yourself. Love to hear your kind of history, your career history, and how you ended up joining us at Meraki.
Yeah, sure. So it's been 14 years in the industry, and I actually took a deliberate choice of broadening my skill set as opposed to focusing on one thing. And it's not like I consciously made that decision. It's just the nature of things. As I progressed, I had to pick up security, I had to pick up collaboration, I had to pick up routing switching. Just took up whatever came along. So as a result, I have a sort of broad skill set. So I started off as a trainer. So that was in around 2007. Yeah, 2007. I started as a trainer, a Cisco trainer, Cisco certified instructor, and I was focusing mainly on routing switching. I think that was my comfort zone. So just stuck to CCNA, routing switching, CCNP, routing switching.
Oh, yes.
But then, the foundations, I suppose. And but then, that got me really strong in the fundamentals. Later on, I realized that when I went on to do hands-on stuff, it was like, wow, okay, my foundations are very strong. And also that role allowed me to grow as well, like not just routing switching generally, but also service provider routing switching, BGP, MPLS, IPv6. I was the only one doing IPv6 at that time. So it was that was a lot of fun. But then I think I was there for about 4 years approximately, and I was like, okay, I think I need to diversify my skill set because things like collaboration and so on were coming up, and they were a big thing, and I wanted to diversify my skill set. And then I saw this role at Cisco, and they said, oh, as long as your routing switching stuff, that's fine, but the role is more collaboration focused. But we'll get you up to speed on collaboration. So I applied, and I joined the Cisco CBC. That's what it was called at that time, and I think it's now called EBC, Executive Briefing Center, as opposed to Customer Briefing Center.
Oh, yes. Great
Yeah.
environments those are.
Yeah, and I was amazed. It was here in the North Sydney office, and there was a whole level 10, just for the customer briefing center, and customers just come in, and I was amazed at how everything was designed. Like, okay, customer comes in, the first thing we show them is the Cisco Stadium solution, and then we got the Cisco Home solution, and then we've got collaboration solutions, then we got other verticals, health, and so on. It was all staged and step by step, so someone could just come in and walk through. As a Cisco employee, you could just walk through. Oh, this is what we have. This is what we have. That's what we have. And it was never about point products. It was about, oh, in health we can do this. In stadiums we can do this. It was all about solutions. So that was a complete new way of looking at technology for me. And it completely changed my perspective. That it made me realize that end of the day, technology should solve business problems.
Right.
So that's the whole purpose of it, and we shouldn't forget, and things like that. So maybe look at the big picture more. Maybe look at more. It made my mindset more strategic. I started thinking technology from a strategic perspective, and things like that. And it was a fun role, and I had a great team leader there. and he was able to get me up to speed on collaboration. And yeah, before you know it, I was like doing collaboration out of the top of my head. Of course, I didn't appreciate that at that time. I appreciated that when I left the customer briefing center, and I actually joined a Cisco Gold partner. So one of my mates actually became a country manager for Papua New Guinea for that company, and based in Sydney, but they opened up in Papua New Guinea. And so my friend was like, "Hey, I'm going to be the country manager in Papua New Guinea, based out of Port Moresby. I need someone I trust." And I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?"
That sounds exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "I've never been to Papua New Guinea before. It sounds cool. So yeah, let me pack my bags and and, and,
Right.
and and join you guys." So it was pretty much a week's thing. I remember it was pretty much a week's thing. Cleared up everything, like, packed up and flew out. And new country, new people, new culture, and yeah, and I was thrown into pre-sales first. So I was applying a lot of the things I learned at Cisco at the Customer Briefing Center at the CBC. I learned a lot from the SEs there in terms of how to sell technologies, how to pitch it, focus on what problems it solves and so on. So I got to apply a lot of that stuff. And luckily, my country manager, who has had I think at that time probably 15 years of pre-sales experience himself, he was able to confirm, okay, you're doing the right thing here. Oh, yeah, you made the right choice here, and so on. So that gave me more confidence
Hmm.
in the pre-sale side of things. And then I also got into projects as well there. So we merged with another local company there. So that's why we came to be called as Allcom MCR. So I joined MCR and then joined with Allcom. Our company merged with Allcom, so it became Allcom MCR.
Okay.
And there were some projects I had to do. So I remember one of the first projects I had to do was a collaboration deployment for 900 users. And and I
Wow.
was like, okay, yeah, that is a big responsibility. So got it done. Then then it just came up. Then things just started coming up. So Cisco ASA deployment, then a few Meraki deployments with the MXs especially. So MX was a big thing in Papua New Guinea at that time
Mm.
because Cisco had 1900 series routers, and that's predominantly what they would use at the edge. But then the Cisco 1900 routers didn't have visibility. You know, so okay, you just configure the connection and it's good to go. But a lot of the IT managers and CTOs would like to know, like, what's my application usage, what apps people are using,
Right. Yeah. The,
things
the
like that.
stuff the stuff we take for granted now.
Yeah, yeah, the layer 7 visibility,
Yeah.
that was a key differentiator, and we were able to position Meraki from that perspective. Oh, you're not just going to get an edge router, mate. It's more than that. Yeah, and also another thing in Papua New Guinea was the skill set. So Papua New Guinea is still a bit remote from mainstream Australia and so on. And when it comes to IT skill sets, there's not much training options there,
Hmm.
or it's very hard to get training. Usually they have to fly to Australia to get training, and adding the flight costs and so on, time away from work. It's pretty challenging for a lot of people there. So when you look at the skill sets, they're more generic. So most are system admins. They know a bit of basic networking here and there and stuff like that. So that's as far as they go. Yeah. So as a result, Meraki was a good fit because they didn't have this huge learning curve to manage and troubleshoot a Meraki network. It was dashboard, and they just focus on, okay, you know what, I want application visibility. Yeah, there you go. It's there on the dashboard.
Right.
Yeah, I want to set up my VLANs or something like that. Yeah, just check these boxes and put a name for the VLAN, and you're good to go. They didn't need to focus on learning, what command, how do I do it, how do I accomplish my task. They just focus on, this is what I want to do. It's there. I switch it on or off.
Okay.
Yeah, so very, very handy there. And yeah, and one of the first presentations I did when I landed in Papua New Guinea was to do a customer presentation around the Meraki solution. So Meraki was very new at that time, and cloud managed networking was also pretty new at that time as well.
And
People
this
were,
was and this was what year was this?
oh, it was around 2014 or
Oh
2014.
yeah, yeah. Long
Yeah,
time
yeah.
ago. Yep.
I think in Australia they came in 2012, I think,
Hmm.
2012, something like that. So for PNG, people just heard about Meraki, and they didn't know exactly what it was. And a lot of people were confused about the concept of a cloud managed network. So they're like, okay, is this AWS, Azure? What are we talking about here? They said, no, 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 it's Cisco's own cloud. It's and yeah, but they were able to get it. A lot of people got it in terms of the simplicity of it, and especially wireless and so on was a big demand in Papua New Guinea at that time, and being able to set up a wireless network, be it mesh or simple wireless or very complicated wireless as well. Well, yeah, they were just amazed by how easy it was to just manage it. That's all they wanted to do, something that gets plugged in and they just configure the thing and it's just easy to manage, and it worked very well. The messaging was very easy to do. But the main thing I remember, Simon, is that the application visibility was key, and the reason why, interestingly, is because in Papua New Guinea at that time, trying to get an unlimited internet connection per month was around 6,000 to 7,000 Australian dollars.
Ouch. Wow.
So yeah, so they were like, yeah, we can't afford to let people loose on the internet, especially from the office.
No.
So there had to be strict controls in terms of what people are doing and how people are using the internet. Some people who like to put a block, but some people who like to get more visibility as well. But either way, Meraki MX did the job. It connected to the WAN connection perfectly, and they could put in layer 7 firewall rules, and then they could get a layer 7 visibility as well, and use that data to then, keep their policies up to date or evolve as the business grows. And they just love that, everything in one box.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like you had a good time out there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and because it was culturally new as well for me. So a lot of people don't know in Papua New Guinea there's about 800 languages. And it's like
Whoa.
a lot of people think of Papua New Guinea as a small island and things like that, but there's actually 800 different languages. So that many number of tribes and cultures and so on. It was fun. It was fun overall, even from a job perspective and even from a personal learning perspective as well, being exposed to new cultures, new people, and so on.
And then you
So.
returned.
Yeah, and then I returned. I was there for a couple of years, approximately a couple of years, I think it was a little bit more maybe. And then I came back to Sydney, and I picked up a training role. This time it was for Juniper, so I became a Juniper Network certified instructor and started doing Juniper training around routing, switching, security, very much like the Cisco role I did before, the Cisco trainer role, but this was more focused on Juniper. And this actually gave me a good idea of what other vendors were doing. So up to that point, when it came to networking, it was mostly, yeah, Cisco was the go-to, right? And that is true in the market as well. But then there are other networking vendors as well. So this gave me an insight into what Juniper is doing and things like that. Yeah, but didn't stay too long in that role. I think it was about 7 or 8 months, and I actually got called by Checkpoint, because one of the things I did in Papua New Guinea was also sell Checkpoint as well. And I got invited by Checkpoint saying, "Hey, we got an opening in distribution. We need again, a trusted person at distribution to be able to, evangelize Checkpoint and, follow Checkpoint strategy, but from a distribution perspective." And I said, "Wow, you don't get invited for roles, all the time." So uh, I did take that for granted. I said, "Yeah, I'll take it," and I joined Westcon as a Checkpoint solutions architect. And yeah, the focus was on emerging technologies with Checkpoint, like mobile security, sandboxing, ransomware was becoming a big thing at that time. And while I was there, I thought, me and my manager, we thought, hey, I got Juniper sets already, so, and they're a Juniper distribution as well. So I thought, you know what, I can do Juniper as well, mate. And I remember my manager going, "Are you capable of handling two vendors?" I said, "Yeah, I got plenty of time to do that. It's all about time management." So yeah, so did a lot of Juniper road shows, and at the same time was doing a lot of Checkpoint enablement as well, especially around the emerging technology. That's what they were more focused on. And again, this was a new perspective for me, because before that I was more evangelizing towards customers, and distribution is evangelizing to partners. So you don't
Yeah.
really interact with customers direct. You let partners do the thing.
Right.
And but the partner messaging is very different, because partners usually have the solution figured out, and they're just coming to you to get a final price, or just want to confirm on a few other things, whether they're going the right way in terms of the design and so on. So yeah, it was a very new world for me, and it gave me a very new like a umbrella or a top down view of the partner land. So very good learning experience there from that perspective. Uh, then yeah, I jumped into Vendorland. So I was like, let's start doing things for vendors, because I thought my skill set, all the things I learned from experience up to that point, seeing it from a partner perspective, customer perspective, I thought would be very handy. I thought it'll be more valuable for vendors. So put my foot in the door at Sophos. Was a technical trainer there for the APJC region. I guess, yeah, and Sophos was also a very new solution for me at that time. But again, firewall is a firewall end of the day. So yeah, technically it was fine, but then the fun was traveling around the APJC region, and again, cultures and so on. So Hong Kong and Philippines and Malaysia
Wow.
and so on.
Lots of air miles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good thing. The lounges and so on. So got access to those lounges and things which I needed desperately.
Very nice.
But then also making relationships. I think that's what I value. Looking back in my Cisco training days, and also as a Sophos technical trainer, traveling around. I mean, nowadays we don't get to travel because of the situation, which is a bit unfortunate, I think, personally, because one of the things I really value about face-to-face, engagements was the relationships you built. Like even
Yeah.
today, I still remember people back in 2007, whom I met and so on, and from different countries. Like I remember during the Hong Kong protests, I was actually talking to one of my students at Sophos. I was like, hey, what's going on? Are you guys doing okay? And I was getting more up to date news than the news journalists.
Wow.
So what is happening on the ground? So so things like that. So those relationships is what I value a lot.
Right.
And
And then
yeah, and then
finally, it
yeah,
led your pathway to our door.
that's right. And yeah, so I realized that there was a big gap. In terms of me having done the last Cisco project or something like that. It was quite a few years, and it was always an intention for me to come back to Cisco. I mean, initially when I worked at the customer briefing center and I left, the value at that time when I left, I was like, oh, I'm an ops engineer. Let me shop around and enable my skill sets there. But then when I left and joined, the Cisco partner, that's when I realized what I learned at Cisco was like 2 or 3 years ahead of what the market was doing. And some, like I remember, there was a customer who had to deploy an on-prem version of WebEx. I mean, now everything is cloud, but at that time it was on-prem version of WebEx. It was version 1.0, and I was the only one, who actually had deployed it. It was within Cisco, but there's hardly anyone in the market who had actually deployed it. You know, so yeah, so those kinds of things. That's when I realized, wow, the skill set I have, what I learned at Cisco is actually very, very valuable, and I took it for granted. So I always wanted to come back to Cisco. It was always in the back of my head. And then this role, Meraki Technical Evangelist popped up, and I was like, wow, I haven't touched Meraki in a lot of time. And I did know that Meraki actually evolved, like, with cameras and all that stuff. They had a lot of other things going on, and and security as well, integration with Cisco security and Umbrella and so on. So I knew Meraki was like really growing. And I saw that I saw that as an opportunity to get back into the Cisco world, and especially Meraki. And I've heard so much about Meraki culture. So back again when I was working for a Cisco Gold Partner, sometimes I used to walk into the Cisco office and sorry, the Meraki office to be more specific, here in Sydney, and I saw a very, very unique culture. Like looking at the support guys, you see I remember. MJ, who was my account manager at that time, he's moved on from Meraki now. But at that time, he was doing a show of the office, and he was saying, "Oh, this is our support team." And I saw the guys, just lounging around on bean bags. They had a headset. Someone would be just walking around with a laptop talking to a customer, and there was bean bags all over the place. There was a whole bag of M&Ms, and some people playing table tennis. I was like, wow, this is very different. I mean, for that time, it was very, very different. And so I knew it was a very fun workplace at Meraki. So yeah, so I took the opportunity, and became a technical evangelist here, and that's what I am now. And it's very good because I could use some of my experiences,
Yeah.
back. 2014 and so on. I could share my perspective of what I've seen as the growth of Meraki. And I've also seen from a competitor perspective. So I know exactly how Juniper competes with Meraki. I know how the security industry competes with Meraki and so on. So I've seen the other side as well. Sometimes, I share that with the audiences as well. I say, all right, guys, these are some of the mistakes I've seen people make when they position Meraki and so on. So, yeah, so
That's a
it's fun now.
very interesting story. And yeah, I mean, I've done some training myself in
Right,
the early days at Meraki
right,
and really enjoyed it. It's so much fun
right.
meeting all these people, seeing the
Yep,
light bulbs go off as they start to learn how to do this stuff.
yep.
And you know, as you said, it gives you the opportunity to travel and to meet people in different regions and parts of the world. It's a great fun
Yeah,
thing to do. I think if you're
yeah,
into really into the technology and you want to share that, it's a
yeah.
wonderful career to follow. So tell us a little bit about what the role of a Meraki technical evangelist looks like.
Right. So, yeah, as the name suggests, evangelist, and a lot of people can interpret it in different ways, I suppose. It's a word borrowed from the religious landscape, I suppose. Evangelize,
Right.
and I guess for a lot of people, the first picture they get is a guy with guy in suit and tie, and playing hymns and singing prayers and so on. No, so evangelism at Meraki is more about getting partners, customers to know the value of Meraki. So that's one thing I've learned, in my career at least, is that there is the technical aspect of it, how to do things and how to configure this and so on. But it's important for people, everybody, this is technical, non-technical, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the role type is. It's important to understand what impact technology would have on a business. And that's very, very important. The why question, is very, very important. And evangelism is all about that. It's about why Meraki? What's the value proposition of Meraki? Why would you want to have Meraki in your business? What does it do for your business? And that is the main thing. It could, I do, we do, our team, I should say, our team does a lot of Cisco live sessions. I've been doing a lot of partner interactive webinars in the APJC region, promoting Cisco MVs, talking about switching. Last year we had a strategy where we wanted to educate sales and pre-sales on why would you want to have a Cisco Meraki switch network? What's the value of having a Cisco Meraki switch network? So this was aligned with when Cisco announced the end of life for some of their Catalyst switches, and of course there's the whole Cat 9K pathway as well, which is also an option for customers. But then there's also the Meraki option as well. So, so some customers might benefit from having a Cat 9K because of its feature set, but a lot of customers would have benefit from having a Meraki cloud managed solution. And some of the reasons goes back to what I learned in Papua New Guinea. It's like, how long does it take for you to swap out a switch? I did collaboration projects. One of the most annoying thing for me was having to configure the voice on the network, switch by switch, port by port, one by one. I was like, wow, when am I actually going to get to deploy the phones? When am I going to get to deploy the video conferencing equipment? I'm so busy setting up the whole network. And with Meraki, it's just, dashboard, select ports, click, done. So
Right.
yeah, so things like that, showing people not just what the dashboard has, but what value it brings. Like, okay, this is why we have this feature. The fact that you can configure multiple switches across multiple ports in one go is cool, but what's the value? What value does it bring? Okay, you can save time on a collaboration project and just quickly get to collaboration stuff and not just spend 2 days just setting up voice VLAN on a port. Um, so things like that. So that's where, I mean, evangelism in general is about explaining the value of Meraki to customers, but I take that and personalize it in terms of putting my own experiences there and so on. And yeah, it's all about saving time on repetitive, mundane tasks, and so you can focus on complexity and so on. So that's sort
Yeah.
of the messaging we try to provide, be it cameras, switching,
Whatever it
firewall.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
liked what you said about the why. That's
yep.
there's this famous book by Simon Sinek called
Okay,
"Start with Why," If you
Right.
haven't seen that book, it's definitely worth checking out.
The author is familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of
yeah,
the author. Yeah.
he's a pretty well known guy
Right.
online, and
Right.
it's pretty easy to find on YouTube, I think, as well.
Okay.
And
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
he does really focus around the importance of really understanding why you want to do something before you get into
Yep.
it. But of course, we're here to talk about, you know, for those people who are listening who actually do want to go to that next step, they understand
Yep.
the why and they want to actually start learning how to implement it.
Yep.
So then we should pivot a little bit and talk about the training. So what are the kind of training tracks that customers and partners can follow?
Yeah. So yeah, what we want to focus on now is our Cisco Meraki Solution Specialist certification we have,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of it's very similar to getting a CCNA or CCNP, except that this is a specialist certification. And as you know, Simon, for me personally, since I touched Meraki, well, first time I touched Meraki was in 2014, and now it's what 2022 already, and there's cameras, there's the firewalls have evolved, switching has evolved. So endpoint management has evolved. So many feature sets have come across, and now we're talking about going into SASE and
Mm-hmm.
integration with Cisco Umbrella and a lot of the other and analytics with smart cameras, adoption of APIs, DevOps and so on. So yeah, Meraki is simple to use and things like that. But then when it comes to deployment, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And a lot of the times, I know, like engineers, be it partners or customer engineers, yeah, they know the solution, but like for example, you want to deploy a site-to-site VPN across branch sites, and you have a MX in the data center, and you want to set up a VPN, and you want to do OSPF or BGP on top of that. People know that, but then okay, but is this the recommended way of doing things? Is this the best practice? Am I doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
um, that's always been a common question, and they always look out for vendors, or even when I was in distribution, a distributor, someone, to verify that what they're doing is the right thing, and that's what training does, and that's what Cisco Meraki Solution Specialist is all about, to give the confidence to for people who attend the training, to then walk away and go, yeah, I know what the best practices are. And going back to the same scenario of site-to-site VPN with BGP, people go, yeah, I know what the BGP options are on Meraki. I know why we have BGP there. I know the particular use cases. I know when to use BGP. I know when to use OSPF. And for a variety of customers, they can easily design a solution and be able to justify why they're going for certain options when it comes to design, and also be able to implement it and troubleshoot it without having to have a go-to person,
Mm-hmm.
or let me raise a support case because I don't know what this checkbox does, you know. No, training will cover that. You enable this. This is what it's for. If you enable that, that's what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives them that confidence to be able to manage a Meraki network. And I guess from partner perspective, it's also about managing a variety of customers and being able to deal with that variety and having 10 15 options maybe, and which option is right for which customer. So yeah, so training is all about that. So tomorrow you just walk in and you go, I'm a Cisco Meraki solution specialist. What that means is, yep, I know what the best practice is, and what I suggest to you is as recommended by Meraki.
Mm-hmm. And there are a couple of tracks, right? You can do it. You
Yep.
can do it in a couple of different ways, just based on how much time you've got.
Yeah, that's right. So there's so we split CMSs into two parts. So there's ECMS one and ECMS two. So now ECMS is Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, acronym. Just to add another acronym to the to the ones you already have. So Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions. So there's part one and part two. So part one is designed for people who are absolutely new to Meraki. So they might have heard about Meraki, but never touched Meraki before.
Mm-hmm.
They might have heard about Cloud Managed, but never had to deal with it. So the part one, Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions part one, is designed for that type of an audience. So they get a feel of what Meraki is, what the dashboard is, what the options of the dashboards are. So they get familiar, like, oh, if there's a camera, this is where I go to configure these features. If there's MX, I know where to go and set up a site-to-site VPN. I know where to go for configuring the layer 7 firewall rules, for example. So just getting familiarity with the dashboard. Whereas part two, Evangelist Cisco Meraki Solutions Part Two, is 3 days and deep dive training, and that goes into design and implementation. Right. So ECMS one is not more about design; it's more about, hey, this is the dashboard, get a feel of it, work yourself around, and things like that. But ECMS2 is like, okay, guys, let's step back a bit. Let's start focusing on how you would set things up, like MXHA. One of the most common questions we get. Everybody knows what HA is. Everybody knows what Meraki HA does. But then when it actually comes to deployment, people are like, okay, but you know, what do I do on the WAN side? Or what is your recommendation on the WAN side? What is your recommendation on the LAN side? Do I have a link between the MXs? Or do I have cross links down on the LAN side? Do I do Ether channel and all that stuff? So people know the options, but then which option is the best option, right? So ECMS2 focus from that point of view. So we start with that. These are the options you have, and these options work in different environments. And then now let's get to how to configure that. So you actually get to see the options. And by the time I think you finish engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions 2, you pretty much know each and every option, what's there on the dashboard. So every checkbox, every radio button, and when to use which option, and which option is good for which design, and things like that. So yeah, so those are the two tracks, Simon.
And it used to be, I mean, back in the early days, we used to do
Right.
this with physical equipment and
Yeah.
literally set up a little network in the room. I mean, obviously, in the current situation, it's not been so easy to do that. So I'm assuming everything
Yeah.
can be delivered online now.
Yeah, that's a good point, Simon. Yeah. So the labs, are all remote labs, and that's another benefit of having Meraki, because I remember back in the when I was a Cisco trainer. Yeah, they were on-prem labs. You had to maintain equipment, and then you had to open up SSH sessions and power consumption and so on. But now, with Meraki, it's easy. Of course there are labs to it. Labs is very important for technical training. So there is the opportunity for the audience to get hands-on experience. But then the labs can be anywhere. It doesn't matter, because all the participant needs is of a browser. So, we don't need to ship, a stack, a full Meraki stack of equipment down to their houses and then ask them to
Right.
ship it back. We just said, mate, all you need is just a browser, and here's your account, and the equipment can be anywhere. That depends on the trading provider, where they can, host the equipment anywhere they want to. But you can run classes worldwide, having just the equipment in one location, because all the audience needs is a browser.
That is a lot easier than the way it used to
Oh,
be,
yeah.
with like
Yeah.
piles and piles of Pelican cases stuffed to the gills with equipment, and you have to
Yeah.
find it all, pack all the cables up, get it shipped around the
Yeah.
world. Very painful. So thank goodness
Yeah.
we've moved past
Yeah.
that stage.
I mean, and not even mention, Simon. I mean, once you get all that up and running, and then access issues and local network issues, and
Right.
yeah, you have to be there a day before.
Oh, you're bringing back so many memories for me right now. It's incredible. So, I mean, we talked about starting with why, and I think we did a pretty good job already of explaining why people should want to become certified. But did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Yeah. So yeah. So I remember. I mean, I'm just trying to go back in time as well, and I remember I did my CCNA in 2003. Right. So that's when I first
Wow.
did my CCNA, and I realized that I had some sort of aptitude in networking. And looking back over the journey of certifications and how it's grown, nowadays a lot of people take training for granted. The people just go, oh, I don't want training. I'll just jump onto some YouTube sites or something like that, or I'll just watch a video and so on. That's all fine, but then what I've seen is, this is especially as a trainer, what I've seen is that kind of knowledge can be problematic long term, because those are quick fixes. It's like, I guess you're working in a workshop, and you say, you know what, for now I'll just put super glue on this and stick it together, right? And yeah, that's okay for now, but you don't want that to be your long term solution. So I'm a fix it all guy, and the only thing I have is a super glue, right? That's
You're
not going to take.
you're reminding me of YouTube. Like, how many people just consider YouTube all they need for training on almost anything?
Yeah. It's not wrong, but it doesn't take you very far,
Right.
and it doesn't make you a Meraki specialist. And if, as a partner, you walk into a custom environment and they go, Oh, okay. So how do you know that? Let's say you suggest to customer, okay, this is how we do the design. With Meraki HA, we're going to put in switches, we're going to put in a stack, and they go, okay, why do you recommend that? Oh, yeah, no, I saw this on YouTube. Yeah,
Right.
sorry, man. That's that's not very convincing, right?
Yeah.
But whereas you go in and you say, no, 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 I attended a 3-day class. I engaged with Meraki people. On top of that, and so on. I'm part of the Meraki community as well, and things like that, which we'll come to later on, I suppose. So that gives you the credibility to be able to talk with confidence. If you're a partner, you can confidently approach customers, and if you're a customer engineer, you can walk back and manage your network more confidently. And in fact, you might even be able to go up to your bosses. And suggest, right now we're doing this, but there are much more better ways we could do it, or there could be features which they didn't hear about, and now they think that that feature is good for them. Like for example, managing captive portals, right? So everybody, not everybody, I guess most people who have a Wi-Fi have some sort of splash page for guest access and so on. And a lot of the times is, okay, how am I going to manage this splash page, right? And I've seen this, like people don't know that there is an API for that with
Mm,
Meraki dashboard.
right.
So that's the captive portal API, and that can manage like hundreds of sites. If you're a hotel and you've got I don't know, a hotel branch in, let's say, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane, and then there are multiple events running across the cities, and they're all different events, and you want to upload those events on your splash page so people can click and register or whatever they want to do with an interactive splash page on the Wi-Fi. How are you going to manage at that scale? And there comes the captive portal APIs, and things like that. So now they know, oh wow, okay, I didn't know we could do this with APIs. And then they walk back, go back to the environment, and they go, to their bosses, and they go, there's a much better way of doing this, and let's do it this way. This is what I learned at training.
Right.
So
Now that's
yeah,
that's actually a very good way of putting it because, like you said, it's if we create a product that's relatively easy, which we
yep,
certainly believe Meraki to be,
yep,
and nowadays you have such easy access to information online, then it's very easy to assume that you become an expert just by playing with it, just by watching a few YouTube videos. And I think you've highlighted very well there that actually getting hands on and getting more of a structured approach to your learning really helps to make sure that you don't have these big gaps because you don't know what you don't know. And
yep,
like you said, I mean, something as simple as the captive portal API, which I think I'm correct in saying was Meraki's first ever API.
right, yeah,
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right.
yeah. I
And
think you're right. Yeah.
and so just being able to understand how to get full value out of this stuff, that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, that's a good point as well, Simon. Yeah, and you mentioned, like, Meraki is all about simplicity, and yeah, it can lead to an assumption where people think, oh, simplicity means I'll just plug it in and see how we go.
Right.
And one of the first lessons you learn in professional services is that is a that's a bad idea, and that's gonna that's gonna come back at you in a very bad way,
And
in your
end up
career.
potentially causing more time and cost down the road as well.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So
All right,
having
so
that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, well, I
Sorry,
mean,
sorry.
I was just going to kind of move us on to the sort of the detail of what you cover. So
Right.
if we establish that it's a good idea to do it, and what
Yep.
are the various sections of the certification?
Yeah. So the topics we cover in ECMS, or Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions. Of course, we cover the dashboard. Of course, that's the core. The dashboard is everything with Meraki, and what you get out of the dashboard. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but in terms of visibility, so there's a lot of data available on the dashboard, because the assumption is that the engineer is not always going to be on site. You'll most likely be remote, and you need to be able to quickly jump onto your management platform and be able to quickly see what's happening on the network, be it device status, be it what's happening with my VPN, be it what's happening with my application usage. So we cover all that, how best to use the dashboard, not really just from configuration perspective, but also be able to know what type of data the dashboard can provide as well to help you. Then, of course, the whole Meraki feature set. That's another very important aspect. So, Meraki has firewalls with the MXs. Then we have switching, campus switching. Then we got endpoint management with Systems Manager. Then we've got Meraki cameras. So someone who comes in for a Meraki training and walks back, they'll know the Meraki portfolio and the feature set across those portfolios as well. And then, of course, I mentioned this before with design. For me, I think I'm putting a bit of personal touch there, because for me, when I was doing professional services, it's getting the solution right is the main thing. So once you get the design right, then everything else flows smoothly. If you don't get the design right, then yeah, you're always going back to the drawing board, and that's
So
going to cause
true.
a lot of,
So true.
yeah, you're going to cause a lot of delays when it comes to implementation. It doesn't make you look good, as an engineer or even your company. It doesn't make them look good as well. So architecture and design being the main thing. So wireless design, MX design, like HA design is one thing we go through. Site-to-site VPN design, SD-WAN design, so on. So that's all covered. Then of course how to configure it and set it up. And then after that is the troubleshooting bit, right? So how best to use the dashboard for troubleshooting, and a lot of the. So I think for a lot of people who come from traditional networking into Meraki, I think one of the challenges is they're so used to following a methodology for troubleshooting traditional networks. Like, okay, something goes wrong. Oh yeah, let me SSH into the box, run a ping command, run a traceroute command, run this command, a set of commands, get data, and then move on to the next. They have that very scripted approach. But with the dashboard, it's all there on the dashboard, but it's a bit different because it's cloud managed. You're not going to connect directly to the box. You're going to go via the cloud, and the dashboard has all that stuff. You can ping, you can trace route, you can do DNS lookups. All that is there, and it's important to know where they are. And sometimes you might just go, oh, it's how do I do a ping? And you might have deployed a very complex Meraki network, and you just go, yeah, I don't know how to do a ping using the dashboard. And and that's important. So what type of troubleshooting tools are there, and how best to use them, and troubleshooting workflows. So we go through that as well. And wireless, especially, like wireless is a very tricky thing to troubleshoot. I mean, wireless is simple to deploy with Meraki, but then when something goes wrong, like when a user complains and goes, "Yeah, my Wi-Fi is not working," how do you decode that? How do you get to the root cause of that? So data is very important, and stay on the dashboard, and we show them how best to get that data, and how best to even correlate some of the information and get to the root cause. So yeah, so I guess to summarize, design, implementation, troubleshooting. Those are the three main aspects we cover across cameras, wireless, endpoint management, MXs. Yeah, across the entire Meraki portfolio.
So okay, I mean this is all sounding very convincing, and I'm imagining there'll be a few people listening thinking, okay, I need to go beyond what I've learned for myself and actually go ahead and get certified. So what are the steps? Like,
Yep.
what's the recommended training? How do you take the exam? How does it all work?
Sure, sure. So we do have, before I go, I'll go into the steps, of course, but just want to highlight a few links people can go to. And I think, Simon, you're going to add that link.
Yeah, we'll put those in the
So,
show
yeah,
description.
no,
Absolutely.
fair enough. Yeah. So, yeah, please do go to those links as a starting point. So there's cisco.com/go/Meraki cert. That's a very good start. And also, we have the community page as well. So the link will be posted below this podcast. So those are two good starting points. So one thing what you need to do is go to those links and check out the topics we cover. I mean, I just told you at a high level, like design, implementation, troubleshooting, and so on. But to get a detailed breakdown of the topics, like ECMS 2, 3 days, what are we going to cover? So have a look at the course agendas, exam objectives as well. So yeah, so I mean, engineering Cisco Meraki solutions very helpful when it comes to real life deployment. But then when it comes to going and getting your certification to give you that credibility, one of the tricks, I think, Simon, I think you relate to this as well. There is this exam thing, so you need to focus on passing the exam as well to get your certificate. So having access to exam objectives. So jump onto the community page, have a look at the exam objectives, look at the course agenda, and the next thing is to subscribe for a delivery method. So we do have instructor-led training, which is provided by learning partners across the world. We do have a Cisco Learning Locator, which you can use to find, I guess, the closest or the earliest schedule. And then there's Cisco Digital Learning as well. So we got the ECMS 1, ECMS 2 as e-learning, and this is specifically for people, who might not be able to jump onto an ILT training, or the dates are not to their convenience, or, it does happen in engineering. People get called away from projects and so on. So time is a constraint.
Yep.
So Cisco Digital Learning gives you that flexibility of self-paced learning. I mean, ILT is preferred because you get the full benefits of what I mentioned earlier. Face-to-face training is always good, but again, it's not. But then you have the digital learning as a sort of alternative option.
Yeah.
Then we have the exam self-study guide, which is in the same link as the community link, which has been posted. So from there, if you scroll down, you'll be able to get to the exam self-study guide. So this is like a book, if you want. So one of the common questions we get is, is there a Cisco Press book, like the CCNA or something like that? We don't have a Press book as yet. It's probably the roadmaps at the moment. But we do have like a self-study guide. And one of the important things we expect people to do after the training is to go through documentation. Meraki documentation will be their single source of truth. And of course, someone who's new to Meraki or new to documentation, the pain is searching for all that. So what we have done is we have consolidated all the documentation articles together in one page, and that acts as a self-study guide as well, and also as a quick reference for more details and so on. And of course, as features evolve, they can always go back to those links to get the most updated information as well. So many ways to use those consolidated set of links as a self-study guide for exam, or just to make sure they're up to date on what's happening with the feature sets and things like that. So there's the exam self-study guide to go through. Then also in the community page, you'll see a link for a self-study lab supplement. So again, training doesn't end there. You don't end everything with just the training. There's a lot of self-learning you can do as well. So after that, we expect people probably, they might want to go and say, okay, I want to set up my own lab. So we do have a lab supplement which actually goes through what's the best way to set up your lab with the hardware. So what hardware you can use and how to connect it, and that would be the best environment, especially when you're practicing for the exam and so on. Then, of course, we have the Meraki community. That's the link. I mean, you'll get access to the community. But that's another thing to note as well. So, community is a very good location, and I think we'll talk about that a bit later on. And then once you're ready, go and schedule your exam at Pearson VUE, just like you would any other Cisco exam. You just need to search for the specialist track. It's listed under the Cisco specialist tracks, and look for the exam number 500-220 and engineering Cisco Meraki solutions. And I think nowadays, it's not. I think I know nowadays, Pearson VUE is also providing a remote format as well, so you can do the exam from home once you get your camera set up correct. Or you can turn up at a center and do it as well. So you got that flexibility depending on what situation, a particular region is at. Are they under lockdown or not under lockdown?
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's definitely been plenty of adapting going on all over the place, and this is just another example of that. It's cool talking about the self-study lab guide as well. Just being able to plug the kit in if you can get your hands on it. It's a really fun way of learning. I did want to pick you up a little bit on the community side of it, because I know I remember you talked when you were giving us your introduction on your own sort of journey, that you talked about the importance of keeping in touch and just kind of staying connected with people that you've trained with in the past, and also just now you mentioned staying current and making sure that the knowledge is kept fresh as well. So maybe just spend a couple of minutes telling us about how the community plays a role in helping with that.
Right. Yeah. So Meraki community is a very active place, and there are a lot of people contributing and also taking away information from communities. I guess that's the definition of a community, I suppose, Simon. So you give and take, and that's exactly what it is. So for a lot of people, let's say, who are just getting started on Meraki, they can jump onto the communities, and we now even have a section for newbies. People who are new to Meraki, they can join. They can start off from there and then move on, and then they can gain a lot, because a lot of people post comments on new features, or some people have problems in their networks, and they just share. They go, "Hey, I've seen this problem. Has anybody else seen it?" And a lot of people jump in, including Meraki employees as well. So I'm there, my colleagues are there, a lot of the SEs are there. So a lot of the Meraki employees are there, and they jump in and give answers as well. And especially around new features, new firmwares, people are like, "Oh, what does this do? What do you mean by this?" and all that stuff. So there's always a contribution from Meraki people as well. And then there are also veterans. So there's a lot of Meraki engineers in there from partner land and customer land as well, who have been doing Meraki for a good decade or so. And and they have a lot of knowledge base they want to share,
Mm.
and they're there on the communities. You can ask them, and they're more than happy to answer your question and so on.
We,
And
we
once,
we know them well on the podcast because
oh
we've had
right,
some of
yeah,
these all stars, as we
right,
call them, on the
oh yeah,
podcast.
that's right,
In fact,
right,
the last
yeah,
episode of last year. So go
yeah.
back about 3 or 4 episodes, you'll find it.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah. And yeah, and then after you get to a certain level of skill set, I suppose, and you get very familiar with more familiar with Meraki, I suppose, and then you can start contributing as well. And then you just mentioned it, Simon. You could become the next all star as well. So that has that gives the constant engagement with Meraki, and for a participant who's trained. And yeah, learning from other community members, contributing, and especially getting access into information about new features, maybe even getting access to beta firmware as well, signing up for betas. You could try it out and help Meraki as well by
Mm.
giving feedback on firmwares, help improve our product. So a lot of Meraki staff are on there, especially product teams, and they're watching. And yeah, it'll be very good. And in exchange, you can try out beta firmware, and keep yourself up to date with what's happening with Meraki, and in the industry in general.
And you talked about keeping fresh there and keeping up to date with things that have been happening. So give us examples of a couple of things that have changed in the last couple of years.
Right. So yeah. So from a training perspective, like Meraki Networks has evolved. I mean, we keep saying that at a high level, I suppose, but but then so some examples would be like what I face when I talk to Meraki engineers on the field, is when we talk about BGP and OSPF. Like for example, everybody knows Meraki switches have OSPF on them, and Meraki MXs have OSPF on them. But then we have BGP. I think BGP um, was officially in the firmware probably a couple of years ago. I think
Yeah.
like globally supported. And so one of the common questions I get is, yeah, I get BGP, but then why would I want to use BGP? Because I've been using OSPF all this time. What's the use cases of BGP, right? And of course in the training courses, we actually cover how Meraki went about doing BGP, and how Meraki simplified BGP as well. And that then everybody just goes, oh, okay, yeah, actually you're right. BGP is actually, yeah, I was intimidated by BGP because I thought I might have to configure this, configure that, neighbors and neighbor relationships and autonomous systems and so on. But then the way Meraki does it is a lot of the heavy lifting is done for you. And so you know so that BGP is a big question we always get asked: when to use BGP, why to use BGP. Then auto VPNs is another example. Auto VPNs very simple to set up. Two-step process. Yeah, select the topology, full mesh, hub and spoke, and then advertise the subnets. But then what I've seen is when it actually comes to deployment, people get a lot of questions.
Mm.
They're like, oh, yeah, I've got these branch sites all coming back to a DC. Do I need to configure my DCMX in VPN concentrator mode, or do I just leave it in routed mode? Yeah, which option should I go for? Then there's things like, okay, if I go to VPN concentrator mode, then what are the gotchas? What gotchas do I look out for? Does it work as it is, or do I need to look out for anything else, like in other parts of the network, right? So maybe they have another gateway there, another router there, or another switch there. What are the gotchas?
Mm.
So those kinds of things, and SD-WAN design. So SD-WAN has become a big thing, and slowly we are going with SASE as well. So secure SD-WAN. So SD-WAN is no longer about getting just a couple of WAN links up and connected and then saying, oh yeah, traffic one go this way, traffic two go this way. It's become more complicated now. You wanna add security to it, you want to be able to add application routing to it, and you want to make sure you get it right the first time. So SD-WAN is something which has evolved, especially from a design perspective, because it's not straightforward anymore. There's a lot of other things you need to add on top of SD-WAN. So getting all those bits and pieces, I guess it's bits of a puzzle, right? Pieces of a puzzle together to get the right picture at the end.
Absolutely.
That's something very key. Some of the times I get asked on things like wireless layer 3 roaming. So in the wireless section, most people will go with NAT mode or bridge mode, and then suddenly they'll go, "Oh, what does this layer 3 mode do? And why do we have two options for layer 3 mode?" You know, so there's layer 3 roaming, and then there's layer 3 roaming with the concentrator. I know I've never seen that. I've never tried that. What does that do? And also, even taking a step back, some people even go, does Meraki even support wireless layer 3 roaming? So we do have centralized and distributed, which customers can choose from. But the thing is knowing your options, right? And
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah, 100%. Well, okay. So, Aaron, we're going to start moving towards a conclusion here, but I did want to ask
okay,
you one more question,
sure.
which was around, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for kind of training and evangelism at Meraki?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I do play a big role beyond evangelism in terms of evolving the content and so on with the Meraki training courses. I do contribute a lot. So, what we want to do as well, what we want to do from a training perspective is to be able to adapt and evolve to where the market is going, and make sure we're not doing old school methods which don't apply anymore, and be relevant to the market and relevant to the new ways of learning and so on. So we are planning to break things down. So of course you can still come for a 3-day class and do the full training. That option is still there. But there are some times where people need to just quickly get up to speed on a particular technology. We don't want to go YouTube way like we spoke about before, Simon. We don't want to go that simple as well. But we also want to make sure that people are get the comprehensive information about a particular technology. Like for example, in some regions, like MX is the strongest product being sold from Meraki perspective, and to deploy an MX, doing SD-WAN is important, and they want to apply, let's say, Cisco umbrella integration on top of it for centralized security. And we just publicly released the SD-WAN connectors on top of our auto VPN. So the thing would be, okay, how do I design this? How do I enable this? What features do I get? So the idea is to have a small modular training on that topic. It's still early days, but the high level, I guess, principle is to split up all the topics into smaller, easily digestible modules.
Right.
So you still have the option of doing the full training, but then to help you with your work or with your project, you can just go onto this short training on that specific topic, know what needs to be known on that topic, and then go to implementation and be comfortable in deploying that.
That's exciting. I like that idea because you're really trying to cater to different learning styles
That's
and like
right.
you
Yeah.
said, practical
Yeah.
realities of the amount of
Yep.
time people have available because we don't all,
That's right.
sadly, don't all have 3 days to dedicate as much
Yeah.
as they might like to do that. All right. Well, Aaron, thank you so much. I mean, that has been a very thorough look through the world of kind of training and evangelism, of course. And so we're very clear, I think, on what people can do who've been listening to the show if they'd like to take the next steps. And obviously, we'll put the link that Aaron mentioned into the show notes as well. So have a look for that if you're interested in taking the next step. But it really just remains for me to say, Aaron, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us today.
Yeah, no worries, Simon. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to join you on one of your podcasts. I mean, I've been watching episodes from your podcast all the time, and yeah, it's good to be on the other side for now.
Fantastic.
For a change, I suppose.
All right. Well, that's been fantastic. So thank you again. And
Awesome.
For those of you listening, thank you so much for sticking with us through this episode. We have certainly given you plenty of useful information there to learn how to move ahead with understanding Meraki, understanding the principles, understanding why. Super crucial. Don't forget that one. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. And so until then, we hope you keep well, and we'll see you back here very soon. Bye for now.